Welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast. Our mission here is to encourage, equip, and empower every woman on her faith journey with Jesus Christ. Today we get to hear from wife, mom, therapist, and consultant Mallory Kurkosky, along with our podcast host, Mykelti Blum. Mallory wears lots of hats, from working therapist, professor, and homeschooling teacher to busy mom and business owner. She shares how a missions trip to a safe house with Bridging the Gap launched her business to support providers of mental health services. Mallory saw a need and desired to bring awareness, resources, and supportive services to these individuals to pour back into their health. This is a unique conversation surrounding the challenges of ministers and mental health professionals who do the hard work daily of pouring into people around them. Mallory gets real candid with us about burnout, compassion fatigue, and secondhand trauma. And she offers loads of encouragement and practical tips to recognize the signs, take care of yourself, and to address when you might need a break. She also shares the ways in which experiencing compassion fatigue affects our faith. This is such a helpful episode for us to better understand and support our friends who are out there doing the daily supportive work, and we're excited for you to hear. So now to our conversation with Mallory.
And get started then.
Okay, great.
Ready?
Yes,
Ready, set,
I
go.
think so. I'm ready.
Well, Mallory, welcome to the podcast. It is so much fun to have you here, and I just can't wait to jump into all of the good stuff, but just a really big welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me too. It's really, it's exciting, and I'm excited to talk about what we're going to share today.
Yeah, I really love doing in-person podcasts at the office because I feel like it adds like another element of fun. You know, it's like, I'm coming in and we're going to sit and look at each other in person.
Yes. Yes. And I can actually like read your body language and you know, it's so much. I agree. I think it's a lot more fun too. Worth the drive in.
So it's worth the drive in. We're just excited to be here, but you are a new friend to me, which is really exciting. I love having the opportunity to connect with new people and learn all about their lives. Mm-hmm. And from what I do know about you, I'm like, ooh, we probably have a lot in common when it comes to our professional pieces and background and things like that. So I am excited to jump into this. But for those who don't know you, why don't you just share a little bit about who you are?
Well, I am, I'm first and foremost a mom of two. I am married and been married for almost 10 years. And
exciting.
My kids are 5 and 2, and I homeschool them and spend, some of my days being able to do that, which I really enjoy. Mm-hmm. But professionally, I am a mental health therapist and a registered play therapist. So I do play therapy with kids as young as 3 years old. I do see a lot of teenagers. I see adults. It just isn't as common because a lot of the referrals I get are for kids and because not a lot of people see kids. And I'm also a supervisor. So I supervise people who want to do play therapy or supervise them for their LPCC licensure. And I really enjoy that, just to be able to reach more people, because then I don't feel like I have to take on all of the clients that are in need. I feel like I can teach others and they can have their client load, and it can kind of keep getting passed on like that. And so I'm also a professor at Bethel, just in their play therapy certificate. And so I do teach intro to play therapy in the fall there, because again, I really enjoy teaching those who want to work with kids, because it's such a need, and it's so important to know how to do it. And it can prevent so much in their adult lives when we can, get to them at such a young age. So, so I've been doing that for, I've been a therapist for 9 years now, I think. And I've been a supervisor for a couple of years and working at building children's mental health program at our clinic and stuff like that. So,
that's such a cool balance to be able to pour into the kids and be the therapist, but then also pour into the people who are doing it and the supervising and the teaching.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's probably a really rewarding balance.
Yes. And it's nice to have a mix. I used to see clients, I would just see them back to back, and the burnout starts to get pretty difficult. But to have a mix and to refer to other people and things like that. And it is fun to see other therapists like really catch on like why play therapy is important and how to use it, like because that's how kids communicate, how, their feelings and things, to get to see them like that makes sense, and then them become passionate about it is also really cool and a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And you also, within the last year, I discovered, which blew my mind. I would have thought you've been doing it for forever, but you started a business.
Yes.
And that is one of the big things that kind of drew me to you, because you sponsored one of our episodes and have all of these amazing things. And I was looking at your website. I'm like, oh, this is gorgeous. Yeah. I absolutely love the theme and a description of everything you're doing. But tell us a little bit about your business.
So my business is called Refined by Fire. And
just a great name, by the way.
Thank you. Yes, it comes from Isaiah 48:10, so that he refines us by fire, and how true that feels in our lives for all of us. I would say the fire can look different, but really we are all being put through that and tested through that. So I love the name. And, but it did, you're right. It started last year when I went on a missions trip with Bridging the Gap to Montana to, work at a safe house. And that's how people were like, why Montana? 'Cause I'm serving them, and it's just like, well, it just happened to be that way. The opportunity came up. It wasn't intentional searching for Montana. I know that there's safe houses here in Minnesota. I mean, they're everywhere. But that's how it came across my path. And so I started to ask them questions about their mental health program. How are they serving these women? How is it going? And I was really shocked to find that it was very, very limited, and they were really only seeing someone once every other week or something. And I was sharing with them, I was like, if your intention is to not have them go back, which on average they return 7 times to their trafficker, which should be your intention. But if they do not learn the skills, like emotion regulation skills, and how to handle their emotions, but then also how to deal with their trauma, I was like, they're going to keep going back. So it's like, we have to do something different. And then, so the more conversations I had, the more shocked I was to find that like really the standard for these survivors is just having a bed a lot of the time in these safe houses. And so they can have 4 walls around them, and they are technically safe, but the resources for mental health are significantly lacking. And then on top of that, how do you help your staff work with this population? Because the burnout is so real. And so I started meeting with their staff, and I started doing trainings with their, they do a lot of like volunteers like that will come and like sign up. They call it a Vocame program. And so they'll become Vocame, and, that's how they help, relieve some of the staff. But I started to pour into them as well because of my history and background in working with kids and working with the family system and really working on helping the environment sustain the progress. I was like, to me, it's really no different. And I need that with them as well. It's like, I need you guys to be healthy. I need you guys to know the skills. I need you guys to not be getting burnt out like you will be if you're headed down this path, because this population is so difficult. And then I just happened to start like building their mental health program, and what it's become has been really insane of how God has put it together. But they're much more significantly supported, and the staff are much more like trauma informed and how to know like trauma informed care, that I think it will make a huge difference. And so they are also like, this is unprecedented. Like, this does not exist really that they know of. It might somewhere, but even if it's somewhere with the women, like the treatment maybe does exist somewhere, but still not the staff side of it, the environment side of it. Because I think most of the time people are like, yeah, like you're normal, you're healthy, you should be good to go. And that's not the case. And so that is where the burnout comes in. And then people can leave, and it can start to become this revolving door. But then how do the women trust, if people are just kind of coming in and out because it's too much? So for me to be able to do that work, Refined by Fire was developed so I could sell merchandise. And that comes to me so that I can do that, so I can sustain just financially and things like that, because they can't pay me. I mean, they're a nonprofit and they have their own stuff that they have to be able to pay for. So I have not asked them, in any way to compensate me. So it's just been trying to do it through my website and through selling merchandise.
Well, what a cool way that it's like, I'm selling this so that I can do this for free for other people. Yeah. And I just absolutely love the concept of this, because we truly don't talk about supporting the mental health professionals and ministry people who are doing hard work enough. Yep. And there's a lot of focus, as there should be, on how we can pour into people who have needs and who are hurting and all of those things. It's the core of why we do what we do. But then there is absolutely that side of burnout. And you've mentioned that a few times. And there is the side of I'm pouring and pouring and pouring, and the emotional baggage that you carry then from what you see. Yes. And I mean, like, secondhand trauma is absolutely a thing. And for me personally, I am a licensed social worker, and I worked in the field for 2.5 years. And then I'm like, I can't mentally do this anymore. I need a break. And I just think we don't talk about it enough. And so it leads people to have a certain mindset of, well, I'm bad if I want to step back. I should be giving more. The guilt creeps in. And all of these things. But so I'm just really excited to have this conversation. And why do you think it is important that we are bringing more awareness to this for people in ministry or who are doing mental health, practices and things like that? Like, why do we really need to spend time talking about it?
Yeah, I think that I agree. It's so important. Because, even just in the therapy world, over COVID, I believe I've heard that 1/3 of our profession left the field in Minnesota, at least. Me. Yeah. And yes, for a play therapist, the average play therapist burns out in 3 years. It is like, if we want longevity, that's what it takes for actual healing, then how do we stay in it? But then also, how do we remove the shame around it that comes up?
Oh, that's good.
And I think that's where people ignore their internal cues or their body, even because it's such a body job. I mean, when we look at the nervous system, it is designed to react and activate and respond. And so if you have someone who's crying, like, your body is designed to activate, like a mom hears a baby crying and is going to go to the baby to feed it or take care of it. And so your nervous system needs to be activated. So when you think about, if you have people in your office kind of all day long coming in with all the things that they have, whether it's trauma, whether it's just conflict, whether it's anxiety, or they know someone who knows someone, like, what do I do? That sort of thing. Your body is activated probably most of the day. And so not only is it such a mind struggle to even comprehend some of the pain that people are going through, and when you're hearing the, horrific things, but your body's going through it too. And it can actually really break it down. And that's where the stress comes in. And then it can create even long-term pain and disease and, things like that. So people are burning out, and and then they feel shame for that, of like, now I'm a quitter and I'm giving up and I'm letting everyone down, or I'm letting God down, or, and so either they're quitting and kind of hiding in shame, or they just keep pushing through. And then we can make some pretty big mistakes in that, and can become apathetic. And it's just like, you know what? I don't care. Like, fine. And then it can start to lead us away from God, because again, the shame creates that barrier. So if we aren't talking about it, that still allows for the shame to be there. And because again, shame is, it's secret. If we're, feeling that way in secret and nobody really understands, especially in ministry, because still mental health is still not always talked about. Compassion fatigue for sure is not really talked about, because it's like, you're telling me that you can get to a place of not really caring about other people. It's like, yes, but how terrible does that sound? Like, who wants to admit that to someone that they know, especially in ministry? And so, but it's like, yes, you can get to that place where it kind of feels almost like one of your senses is lost. And because we all get into these fields or ministry because we deeply care for people and we want to do the calling that God has for us. And so when we get to a place of like, I don't really care, that also is very scary. And some people don't know what to do with that either.
Hello, friends. It's Amber Gersman here to personally invite you to the 2025 Thrive Conference. This October 10th through 11th at the Mayo Civic Center in Rochester, Minnesota, thousands of women across the U.S. will gather for our annual conference. We are honored to have Jenny Allen, Lisa Whittle, and Angie Getz keynoting this event with worship led by Substance Worship. Susie Larson is coming back to MC along with me, and we are eager to gather and confess our faith, just as Peter did with Jesus in John 6 when he said, "No one but you gives us the revelation of eternal life. We're fully convinced that you are the anointed one, the Son of God, and we believe in you." Come join us for Thrive, No One But You, where you'll be encouraged, equipped, and empowered in your faith journey. And there's so much more. Leadership development, tons of exhibitors, an amazing after party, and of course, everyone's favorite, the Thrive Shop, with lots of fun new apparel. Pre-sale a sweatshirt when you register online and shop on site. We are counting down the days to see you. Get your tickets, bring a friend, and we'll see you October 10th through 11th in Rochester for Thrive 2025, No One But You.
I'm so glad you brought up compassion fatigue because the word burnout gets used a lot. And I think when people say burnout, you immediately in your mind think, I'm overwhelmed, I'm tired, I have too much on my plate. That's what I at least think of when I hear burnout. Like I'm overstimulated, this is too much. But compassion fatigue is different. Yeah. It's like this deeper, more emotional level of what my emotional and empathetic heart can handle. And I was laughing a little bit because when you're mentioning like the kind of falling away or becoming apathetic, for me, it was like I became desensitized to the things around me because it was so much and I wasn't allowing myself to process and to heal or to grieve some of the situations. And then it became just desensitized. So talk to me a little bit more about compassion fatigue and really what that is and what are maybe some of the signs that we're walking in compassion fatigue, because I think there might be listeners, especially people in ministry, who may not have as much of like the mental health training as mental health professionals do that are walking in it and they don't even realize it.
Yeah. Well, compassion fatigue is, therapists are taught it because we're taught how to look out for it, but it is getting to a place where you really do kind of become numb and you can start to not really care about like the person in front of you who is trying to work through their trauma, and it's just kind of like, oh, well, yeah, that's too bad. And you can reach this place of apathy and the compassion's not really there. The empathy is not really there. And it does come from really ignoring the signs for a long time, probably. And it comes from just kind of pushing through. I'll be fine. It's not that big of a deal. I was just having a bad day. I just need to get some sleep. We just continue to push through. And this can't really be it. Or for some, if they've never even heard this term before, they didn't even know this was a possibility of like, oh, there's actually a name for that. Like you can start to feel like I'm broken inside. Like what's wrong with me? And then again, when that what's wrong with me increases that shame, then we really don't want to talk about it. So some of the signs for it can be, one, that's where like the internal piece of like, are you checking in with yourself? And like, are you noticing that you care less or don't care as much? Or maybe you don't care at all, but also more dissociation in do you find yourself kind of staring when people are talking to you? Are you dissociating in other ways, which could be, that doom scrolling or, I just want to turn on a show and I'm just kind of, it's checked out. And so dissociation isn't all, because we all do it. We just like, if you notice driving to a place and it's like, oh, wow, how did I get here? Because my mind was just thinking about a lot of things.
All the time.
Yes. It's a form of dissociation. And so it's how often is that happening and to what level? Because it can get worse and worse and worse. And we can start to be checked out. And how are you showing up at home? Whether you have a spouse, whether you have kids, in other relationships, your friendships, are you doing things for fun anymore? Like sometimes not really. And it kind of can move towards a depression side of it. And then it's like, we're just really checked out and kind of doing anything, and caring for others becomes very burdensome of just like, I can't pour into them anymore. I have nothing left.
Yeah. The big one that I want to point out from what you said is really, how is it impacting my home life? How is it impacting my family? I know when I had a season of extreme compassion fatigue, I truly felt like I have nothing left to give to anybody else in my personal life because I was pouring so much out in my workplace, and it was difficult in my marriage. Yeah. Like, hey, I want to talk to you about this. And I'm like, I don't have the emotional capacity. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times in my life I have said, I do not have the emotional capacity to deal with this right now. And that's not fair to him. Right. It's not fair to my friendships. It's not fair to my kids. Yes. Where if you're finding yourself just like no patience, no tolerance, just completely like, I can't be around you right now. So don't touch me. Don't look at me. It's like, those are huge red flags for there's something going on that you need to address. And sure, there might be a time where it's like, it's just a really hard week. You've had a hard situation, hard couple of weeks. But if you're like, I'm noticing this theme for this pattern for months, and I don't want to work out anymore. I don't want to eat healthy anymore. I just don't care. That is a huge moment to address it. And why do we need to address it? Like, why do we have to actually do something about this, and making sure that we're giving ourselves the rest and the capacity to move forward?
Why? That is a really good question, because it takes work also to address it. And so why would we want to? One thing that you just mentioned, like if it's, starting to bleed into other areas of your life, is your quality of life is going to go down. It's going to start to increase other mental health problems, like I mentioned with depression or maybe anxiety. I think there can be, like, spiritually, there's a pull away from God too, especially if we're looking at the shame side of it, of just like, I'm not doing like what I should be doing. And this is like, how do I keep going? And I'm not going to be living in, the call that God has in my life. And we kind of just have those thoughts going. So it pulls us away from God, because now we feel like I can't even, look at you. And then we then start to make decisions that may impact other people. Like, so if I am operating out of burnout or compassion fatigue, how I treat others is going to be different. And if I'm in a leadership role, then that's going to impact other people. And maybe the decisions that I make, especially when we're looking at ministry and in churches, like it can create more of that church hurt, or, people can pick up on if you are apathetic, like, because our nervous systems, they communicate, they talk to each other, and we are able to, like, communication comes from body language, facial expression. Like, it's like 80%, nonverbal. And so if I am not really, like, my body's checked out, which it can be, if it falls into that state of hypoarousal, then it is actually shutting down. And so other people feel that without even you saying a word, and can tell. And then how does that impact them? How does that now, like, moving forward with whatever project we have, or with that, whatever, like, who we're going to help, then they generate their own, like, oh, they don't really care about me, or, and it can just kind of go from there. And so we don't always recognize the long-term impacts that it has, and the impacts that it has on other people. And that's why it's, important. So from a smaller scale to a larger scale of it's going to impact you and in your home, but then it will also impact others long term that we don't even know about.
Yeah, because think about all the times that you've walked into a room and you've talked to someone and you're like, oof, what is wrong?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, or they've sucked the air out of the room and you're like, ooh, I'm not going to go by them. Yes.
And that is just absolutely, not something you want in ministry, right? We all people, we have hard days, but like if you're seeing your pastor, if you're seeing somebody in ministry that working in ministry is rough.
Yes.
It is not butterflies and
I'm not
rainbows.
even really in it. And I just...
It is.
It is
just,
yes.
You've got a lot of voices coming at you with thoughts and opinions. And it's so rewarding, when you're doing God's work, you're doing the call in your life to see people that are transformed and healed and all of that. But it is also so tough because you get a lot of the brunt of the arguments or just like situations like that. Yeah. And I think especially for ministers and pastors and people that are working in that capacity, it's so important that you are reflecting and checking your heart and seeing where you're at when you need rest. I love when people take sabbaticals because I'm like, good for you. You needed that and you heard your heart. You heard what the Lord said and went to rest, because this also goes kind of against the rest and the Sabbath that we're called to take and being in a state of rest. And if we're go and pouring, it's like, I just feel like Jesus is saying, like, just come sit next to me. Yeah. Just sit at my feet and I will give you rest. Yeah. And when you are weary, when you are tired and afraid and all of those things, just come sit with me.
And Jesus did that. I mean, he modeled that well, where he did leave the crowds and he would go across, the lake or whatever that was, of like going to the quiet places because he needed rest. And so who are we to kind of be like, no, I'm fine, when he was also modeling like, no, we do need to, and we need to have, our community and our support, but we also need time by ourselves and we have to have rest to be able to pour into other people. He was not around them 24/7 because it's just impossible to be able to do that. Yeah. And also when I think about pastors and leaders in the church and things, often they're kind of more on the front lines than the therapists, and that like people can easily probably meet with their pastor.
That's a great point.
Versus being able to schedule with a therapist, because we got insurance barriers. Can I pay for it? Can I get in? Because the wait lists are so long. So they'll go to their pastor. And so if pastors, if like they may refer, and pastors often do, of like, this is a lot, like you need to see a therapist, and you should. Yes. But you've still heard what they're going through. And if you feel like you can't help, that weighs on you too. And so there can be even more of a burden, I would say, and being able to help yourself, because it can be constant, because you could have someone coming through like all day long, possibly, and like meeting with you, coming up to you. And now they're coming up to you at church and like, and people view pastors as like, I need your help. You are shepherding, and that is the role. And there needs to be even more awareness around compassion fatigue because of the constant, like maybe like just constant, things that come up that you hear about, and that it's even, secondary trauma is a thing, and it's how our nervous system is integrating the information. And so hearing things can create PTSD symptoms depending on how bad it is. And, but we can minimize and just be like, well, it's not like I just heard it. I didn't experience it. I didn't like, why am I having these dreams? Why am I having, these symptoms? Like, what's going on with me? And that can be a scary place too. And if we don't talk about it, then there's, we don't do anything about it.
But it brings me back to what you were talking about earlier of guilt, of how it's so important to just remove the guilt of, hey, I can't help you anymore. Let me find someone who can. Yeah. Because I feel like for ministry, or even for, some mental health professionals, you reach that limit of like, this is more than you can take. And you have to be honest with yourself when you get to that limit. And it's removing the guilt of, oh, I should be doing more for them. I should be doing this. Maybe sometimes crossing unhealthy boundaries emotionally or in whatever, because you want to so desperately help them. But talk to me about why we have to remove that guilt a little bit.
Well, guilt and shame are so closely related that I feel like when it comes to that, it's likely more often shame. I mean, we need guilt because guilt is there to tell us like, hey, don't do that. Like we need to have a level of guilt so that we can determine right from wrong and we don't do things that we shouldn't do. And so usually that's quick to go into shame. And if we're operating out of shame, Brene Brown talks about, people often respond in two ways. Either they run from it and hide, or I don't have it. I don't have shame. And neither of which we can really deal with it then, and we can live our lives out of it. And so if we don't identify that, like there are a lot of things we won't deal with. And if we don't deal with it, we really could cause a lot of harm to ourselves and then harm to other people. And then that's also fast track to compassion fatigue and burnout. And people leave, ministry and they leave. That's why, they leave the field. They leave, they're just like, I am done. I can't do this. And then they leave their faith because then it's just like how could God expect me? And it's like, hold on, now we're twisting God's character and what he's asked you to do because it can be subtle and it's over time. And now we've developed these negative beliefs, negative cognitions, and that gets really mixed up with like who God is. And that gets dangerous too, because then it's just, and you see in like, larger organizations, larger churches, and you wonder like, how could they do that? And it's just like, well, what happened, years leading up to that point, to that affair, to that, whatever it is of what was going on quite a long time ago. And if we don't look at that, like that's where we can be headed. And can we be, the shame also doesn't want us to really, we don't want to get corrected. But if we're sitting with God, he will, correct us in the quiet place. But if we continue to ignore, then I feel like that's when he will start to correct in the public and not out of like, punishment, but more just out of like, that's like, how do I get your attention? Like you're on a dangerous path here.
Yeah. Well, that is just so encouraging. And, just as we're wrapping up our time, I flew by. What are just some ways that you can encourage someone who might be sitting and listening right now, having that thought of, I think they're talking about me. I think I have compassion fatigue. I feel that I've been sitting in this season. And, what is just some encouragement you can give to them and their next steps and what they do next?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is really being able to sit with God and go back to him. Like compassion fatigue can bring you away from that. And, when was the last time we've sat with it? And can we bring it to God and be like, I actually can't do this. I can't do this anymore. Because there's a humility piece that comes with it. And then he can start to show you like, okay, here's the next step. Because likely it will be steps that will need to get taken. Now that may look like boundaries. Does that, for me in the past, it meant I had to see less clients. I take off every 3 months, probably for about a week, because when around that time I can feel it. I can feel
learn yourself a little bit.
Yes. So I was paying attention to the patterns. It meant the homeschooling came out of, I told my husband, I need something different than mental health. Like I cannot just do mental health all day and be in trauma all day and then come home and give anything to my children. And so the homeschooling piece is not ministry, is not helping others. It's more of a teaching, and it feels different than what I was doing. And so to mix it up in your schedule, is that what is needed? And so boundaries will, play a huge role in it. It's just kind of looking at where and how. It doesn't mean we need to go to extremes of like, okay, well, I'm just going to cut it all off and I'm just going to be done. Maybe it is sabbatical, but God knows what we need. And so that's why I say like the first step is really taking it to him and just kind of laying it out. Like I really love the story of Hezekiah when he, they're about to be attacked and he lays out these battle plans of like, we're about to be overtaken. And so I've started doing that of just like writing out everything that feels so overwhelming. And like, here's all these like I've launched a business and I'm still working and all these things. And it's just like, you have a lot of problems that I need you to take care of versus feeling like I need to figure it out and laying it out before the Lord and just be like, I don't even like, what's the one step at a time? And so the prayer closet has been really helpful. So that's where faith, comes in, but it does take a humility piece first. And likely he's going to show you the next steps so that you can figure out, because self-care isn't always about like essential oils and baths.
Right.
It's like, do you need to see a therapist? Do you what's your support system look like? Yes. Is it maybe just increasing exercise and walks? Because what does your physical health look like? Because that is huge in our ability to work with the really tough of like, what is my body? Am I getting sleep? Am I even really eating? Like I'm going without eating, I'm going without water because I'm going. Like there's so many different ways that we can start to address. And so really my biggest recommendation would be to choose one thing and not try to make all these changes all at once. Like you might feel like, oh, yep, here. This is where I need to make changes. But if you do all of it at once, it will be too much. And so the Lord will show you just one step at a time. And so it's going to be more of a process and a journey. It's not going to be like, okay, next week I'm going to start making these changes. Maybe you will a couple of them, but just not all right at once. And it will take some time because there could be some real healing that needs to be done. Yeah. And that takes time. Your nervous system needs to heal and that takes time. And looking at what that looks like. And so those would be probably a few things I would recommend first.
I also love the idea of talking to someone. And I'm not even just saying a therapist, but just a friend, your spouse, just saying the words, I feel burnt out, I feel tired, I feel compassion fatigue. And starting to express what you feel brings so much freedom. Yeah. Because then the enemy is not able to sit in your brain and cause shame and you're giving up on your people. You're not good at this. You're to be able to vocalize it to someone just brings this like, and this is how I'm feeling. And something in this setting where to hear someone else share the thoughts that have been in my head, I'm like, oh, it's not just me. Yeah. That's felt that way. Yeah. And to bring advice and prayer and wisdom. So I feel like just talking to someone about what you're experiencing and you're feeling is going to be a huge blessing and a huge relief to maybe some of what you're feeling and to not feel the guilt for taking care of yourself. Yeah. Because it's just people who have big hearts often have, they carry the big guilt. So just really taking that time that you need. But I just have really loved this conversation and just being able to talk about this and really, really hope that people listening would just be encouraged and wherever you're at, that we live in a time that we're so aware of what other people are going through and walking through. I mean, your friend can post an emotionally deep Facebook post. Right. And now you're sucked in. There's so much the awareness. News, everything. Yeah. And just to take care of yourself and to, just so many practical things. So thank you so much. Yeah. How can people get connected to you? Because I would love for them to come check out your website, follow you, do all the things that you're doing. So how can they do that?
Yes. So my website is refinedbyfire.info and I am on Instagram. You can find me Refined by Fire LLC, and Facebook is, I think, just Refined by Fire. But also like being able to connect to me directly, like, cause I do consultation work and stuff. And cause I really, again, the environment, I like going into organizations and really helping, like, how do we have healthy organizations to, so my information to contact me is on Refined by Fire. And, so those would be the biggest ways too. I've started a nonprofit that's called Embers of Hope. And so that is to do the therapy side of it for these survivors and these women so they can have actual like equal access to like good mental health care versus lacking significantly. And so that is where that goes to that too. So there's some postings around both. So to help people understand, like there's two different things that can be, it can be going to, and they may see that I'm posting about two different things. So yeah.
Oh, well, that's great. Yeah. Well, I will make sure that we include all of that in the show notes too, so people can easily click and buy. And I hope that you can come to some more of our big in-person events with your stuff, since it truly is so beautiful. Yeah. So thank you again for sitting and talking with me. It's been a pleasure.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Bridging the Gap podcast. We were honored to hear from Mallory Kurkosky on burnout, compassion fatigue, and more. You can learn more about Mallory and the work she does by checking out the websites refinedbyfire.info and embersofhopepc.org. And be sure to give Mallory a follow on Instagram at Refined by Fire LLC or Facebook at Refined by Fire. You can learn more about Bridging the Gap at mnbtg.org or by following MNBTG on social media. We invite you to take a moment to rate and review this podcast to help others find this resource as well. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to being with you next time on the Bridging the Gap podcast.